It's day 2 of the African Mining Indaba in Cape Town. Since 1994, it has been the chosen place for deal sourcing and corporate matchmaking for the African mining industry. The gathering is marking 30 years of existence. It continues to serve as the most comprehensive gathering for investment, finance, innovation and transformation in the sector. Katlego Lehodi has been covering the story for us. Let's now cross to him.
Well, we're coming to you live, you're right, on day 2 of the Mining Indaba here in Cape Town. Well, this is where you see those delegates starting to arrive in their numbers today for day 2, because obviously what we saw from very early in the morning was the side sessions, the breakfast sessions that were hosted by various of these entities here. Today we're expecting to see most of those conversations really continue from the breakfast sessions into the afternoon, and this is where we're expecting as well to see some delegates from government to form part of this particular event. Yesterday, you're right, we saw President Cyril Ramaphosa give a keynote address in terms of welcoming those that are here forming part of this particular event, but also talking about the challenges that we have here at home 30 years later, talking about the slow pace of transformation and the move within this sector in terms of those efforts to transform the mining sector so it can work for these economies on the ground. He's addressed some of those delegates here, challenging them as well to leave no one behind as we approach this particular sector, saying there's a little bit of a move in terms of black ownership, mining ownership here at home. So also announcing yesterday, Unati, that really the service provider, the Department of Mineral Energy and Resources, has been working to ensure that there's a service provider that expedite and intervene in terms of the backlog where the issuing of mining licenses is concerned, but also encouraging those investments into this particular space, touching on the challenge of illegal mining that we have here at home in South Africa, a major one. But he was saying the government, they're upbeat about ensuring that they seal these mines and they clamp down on criminal activities, just to ensure as well, Unati, that there are investments that come into South Africa, drawing from the investments conference that we had last year, that those investors won't be spooked in terms of how the mining sector has been faring over time here at home. But you find various of entities here today, and I'm joined this morning by ABSA CIB. Dean joins us, Dean Hack from ABSA. And just to let us in on your role here, Dean, you are a financial institution. We know very well that you've been tracking developments in terms of what has been happening here at home and on the continent, and you'd like to contribute looking at the development, sustainable development of the mining sector going forward. So we're taking stock 30 years later. We find ourselves here, a slow pace, but we're trying by all means to ensure that we capitalize on technology so we can get the best out of this particular space. Welcome to the SABC, Dean. Maybe you start us off by letting us in on your role here as ABSA at this particular Mining Indaba.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much for having me. So as you can see, ABSA is one of the sponsors of this event, and we're very much involved within the mining industry. And from our side, we are one of the many stakeholders within the sector that are involved. What's really nice to see at the Indaba, and what you kind of spoke about now in your introduction, was that we're not just seeing the mining companies, but we're seeing a whole host of different entities from different parts of the sector. So your logistics companies, your trading companies, all the mining businesses here, and they're all talking and trying to figure out what the best way forward is and to create a nice sustainable mining industry. We're obviously aware that there's a lot of challenges in the market. There's geopolitical tensions globally. There's a lot of issues with inflation and costs. However, we really are very well positioned now to have these kind of conversations about Africa. Africa sits in a very good space between the East and the West, and there's really a lot of activity on the continent, and a lot of nice projects that we're looking at financing, especially in the sustainable and the sustainable minerals and a lot of the energy minerals going forward.
Yeah, and also we know very well that most of it would stem from investments and those that would want to also come into ABSA and seek for your assistance financially so that they can keep afloat. How has it been? Are you seeing us on the continent, as countries on the continent, really approaching the investment drive in harmony? Are we seeing ABSA as well picking up just the harmonized approach in terms of how we would want the sustainable development of this sector through investments?
Yeah, so ABSA's presence in a number of countries across the continent, where we are having conversations with all our clients, both domestically and abroad, that are looking at investing in Africa. And there are a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of conversations we're having with different parties. We're seeing really across the commodities, but big focus in particular your battery minerals, your things like nickel and copper and cobalt. So we're seeing a lot of conversations happening, a lot of drive to invest. And what is happening now globally is that there's a big demand for investments within the sector, and all the countries are doing their best to attract that into their markets. And it's really becoming a fascinating continent where there's lots of opportunities, lots of countries vying for this different capital, and it presents lots of opportunities for the banks to come and assist our clients who are trying to sustainably develop, focusing on sustainable finance and bringing these kind of commodities that we need for a decarbonized future for the world.
Yeah, sustainable financing. That is what a lot of people here have been talking about, so that we don't drop the ball. We want to see it through in terms of how we see most of these companies faring. But let's talk about the presence of China in Africa. We know very well that as ABSA, you've been tapping into that space and looking at financing some projects from China into Africa. Let us in on that relationship, and how is that going?
Yeah, it's going very well. We are very active in financing a large number of projects across the continent where there are Chinese shareholders or Chinese companies doing it. But for us, we'll finance projects across the continent that are important for the development of the continent, for the development of the people, especially projects where there's a bigger focus on beneficiation within the continent. And we're supporting a large number of international and domestic businesses that have some very exciting projects happening across the continent and across different commodity streams.
Let's talk about the domestic challenges that we have here at home. I know that you are one entity that also is interested in look at financing developments around ESCOM. Let's talk about the issue of load shedding. Is this something that is a cause for concern for you? Are we really seeing a little bit of a move in terms of how the country is approaching that particular challenge, in terms of also developments and how it affects what is happening in the mining sector?
Sure, thank you. So there's certainly no secret that in South Africa there is a challenge around power and there's a challenge around logistics. But with all challenges, it presents opportunities. And what we are seeing at this conference, and as I mentioned, there's a large number of stakeholders, people are sitting down collaboratively to figure out what is the solution for the country going forward and how can they play a role in pushing the country forward from a development perspective and infrastructure perspective. And as the bank, we're instrumental in helping not only finance the mining projects and financing the infrastructure projects that are associated with the mine, but very active in the renewable energy space. You know, a lot of these mining companies are getting big captive solar projects up and running. You know, we're very instrumental in helping to finance that and to support that from both the mining level down all the way to a household level. So there's a lot of opportunities going forward. There's a lot of stakeholders that are engaged collaboratively to try to figure out what the best way forward is for the sector, both in South Africa and Africa in general.
And let's just, before we let you go, speak about the economy, because we know very well that the economy has not been doing well here at home, and you'd see a lot of people also just coming through, and not just even here at home, but also the economies of those on the continent. Are you worried? Are you seeing some sovereign, delays in terms of some of those countries that would want to service their debts through ABSA? Are you picking up a little bit of challenge in terms of the sovereign debt that you offer to some of these countries?
So ABSA is present in a large number of countries, and we absolutely see cycles in all of the regions that we operate, you know, ups and downs. But what is important though is ABSA as a bank is committed to all the markets that we're present in. So we're there for all times during the cycle, and we continue to support our clients and the institutions who we work with throughout every situation. As I said, we're long-term committed to the continent and committed to this sector, and we'll continue to support the businesses regardless of what's happening in individual markets at any specific points in time.
Din, thank you very much for your time. Din Hack coming through there from ABSA, just letting us in on what they've been working on over time. And you can imagine that investment drives and how then the country, the continent would have to capitalize and not leaving anyone behind works around also the vision of ABSA in terms of ensuring that they remain a financial institution that would fund some of these companies that come to them knocking to say they're in need of opportunities. We see the president talking about how they're going to be rolling out the issuing of mining licenses. So most of these companies would want to position themselves and get finances in terms of how then they would want to form part of this sector in a sustainable way.